Hey, so let me guess, you want to know whether it's safe to live in Surrey, British Columbia or not? Well, I got you covered. In this video, I'm going to be showing you whether it's safe or not safe to live in this beautiful city. And then another thing, make sure you guys stay up to the end of the video, because at the end of the video, I'm going to be showing you guys the most important thing that you do need to know about this city when moving out here, guys. So stay tuned for the rest of the video. Hey guys, it's Aaron Sangera here with Prestige Property Group, and me and my team are actually a team of local realtors out here in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we absolutely love helping people that are looking to move out here or just living in the surrounding areas, either buy or sell real estate, or just answer any of your questions, just be of help in absolutely any way we possibly can, guys. So first things first, our number's right down here below, so if you guys ever want to reach out to us via phone call or text, just do that. Or our email address is listed right here too, so if it's easier for you guys to reach out to us via email, you can always hit us up with that too. And then our information is also in the description box below and also in the pinned comment down below too, guys, so make sure you guys do that. And then lastly, hit that notification bell and that subscribe button so that this way every week when we do put out videos, you guys are the first people to see them. And yeah, so let's just get to it, guys. So in this video, I'm just going to be giving you guys an idea of whether it is or isn't safe to live in Surrey, British Columbia. So let's just kind of get to long story short. When looking at the numbers and just looking at the data, and just based off of me living in this city for as long as I have, I've lived here for almost 20 years, I just wanted to give you guys my unbiased point of view. So is Surrey a safe place to live? That's ultimately, it depends on which areas you're living and the area as a whole that you're living in or moving to, guys. So in a nutshell, if we're talking about Surrey as general, when looking at the crime index and the safety index in general, it's high on the crime index, right? So it technically isn't a safe place to live. So anything over 67 on the crime index is a high crime rate area. Anything below 37 is actually a safe area to live. So when looking at Surrey, when you're looking at the crime rate in Surrey, it's actually sitting at a 71 on the crime index. So sitting at 71 just tells you it is high in crime. The crime rate here is higher than it is in other areas. And of the lower mainland, so you're not going to see this high of a crime rate in, let's say, Burnaby or Richmond or Coquitlam. That's one of the main reasons why Surrey has this bad rep, right? And even looking at what the crime rate's been over the last 3 years, it's the same thing. So the crime rate index, when looking at whether the crime is decreased or increased over the last 3 years, is sitting at 71. So again, anything that's over 67 on the crime index is high in crime, and anything that's below the number 37 is safe place to live. So again, we're up there at a 71 on that list from 0 to 100 on that index rate list. So that just kind of gives you an idea that, again, it's not an incredibly unsafe place to live, but there are a lot of things that you do tend to see here. And so the first things first I'll get to is like the main things that people do have issues with in Surrey is there's a few things. So first and foremost being the gang violence. So there's not, well, there isn't a ton of gang violence as much as there is in, mainland Vancouver, but there is quite a bit of gang violence that goes on here, especially when looking at it per capita. Surrey has a lot less people than actual mainland Vancouver, like the main metro Vancouver. So when looking at that and the crime rate being there, and obviously comparing it, Vancouver's crime rate to our crime rate over here in the Fraser Valley, it obviously is high, and that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people just see Surrey as a bad area to live in general, right? Because you do tend to see a good amount of gang violence, like street fights, just things like that, right? Even when you're kind of going out, you go to the movies, you go to dinner and stuff like that, you do feel like you are in a situation where if you do see anything wrong or stare at someone, that someone is going to try to argue with you or try to start a fight. And I've had tons of people that, just travel out here and they say the same thing too when we're in Surrey, or just tons of people that don't live in Surrey, but they live outside of, like, they live in Vancouver and all the other surrounding suburbs, and then when they come out here, they kind of start to feel that themselves too. So that is one of, like, the main reasons and the main things you do notice about living in Surrey is kind of feeling like you're walking on eggshells, because of when certain things, when you are around certain individuals, you will realize that, when you're out and about, people will sometimes try to start a fight with you. If you're at a lounge, you're at a bar, you're at a nightclub, like, there will be some cases. But then obviously when taking a step back, that happens everywhere, right? But the only one thing is people really like to point it out more here is again, just a bad reputation that we do have here, right? And then secondly is, besides the gang violence and shootings and fights and crime like that in general, is just like the poverty rate here. So what you will notice is if you go towards, let's say, King George and about 108 Ave, what you see is it's actually an area, it's called Skid Row. So in that area, what you notice is there's a lot of like homeless people, drug addicts, prostitution. So like stuff like that is, again, one of the main reasons why people have such a bad idea and there's such a bad rep built towards Surrey, right? Because that area of Whalley is actually becoming a lot more, there's a lot more young up-and-coming families moving out there, a lot of older couples moving out there, and it's a lot more like bilingual and multicultural, and there's tons of different types of people living out there. And you have people that are making a high income, a little bit of the lower end of obviously their yearly income, but they're still living good, reasonable lives, and they're like proper middle-class families. But the thing is, those small portion of people that are on drugs, and obviously, like, at the end of the day, these people do need help. They're in a situation where, that's why when you go to that area, like Whalley in general, like if you just say Whalley to people that live in Surrey, immediately all they think of is like prostitution, crime, drugs, violence, stuff like that. Because when you go to that area, what you do tend to notice is a lot of homeless people and a lot of people kind of just drugged out and stuff like that. So again, that's one of the main cons with living in Surrey, right? And then the last two things also are carjackings. So obviously, a few years back, if we were talking about 5 years back, the car thefts and carjackings in the area were a lot higher, right? Surrey was actually known as one of the biggest carjacking capitals in the world. But now when looking at the crime rate index and safety rate index, we're sitting at about 57. So again, anything that's below 67 is obviously sitting in the middle. Anything that's below 37 is safe. And then anything that's over 67 is a high crime area. So as you can see, like, sitting at a 57, there's not a lot of carjackings, but there are still quite a few. So again, that is another thing that Surrey is known for. And then the last thing I would suggest is certain pockets of Surrey that you go to. Another one of the main reasons why people say it's unsafe is because of during the day and the daylight times, it'll be perfectly fine. Let's say if you're on King George and like 72nd, or if you're again on like 108 in King George, what you'll notice is those areas are safe and there's tons of different types of people that are there. But when the evening comes and it's late at night, that's when you do start to see like more prostitution, people strung out on drugs, more crime, fights, all this stuff kind of starts to you just start to see a snowballing effect that there's a reason why most people start to feel unsafe walking around at nighttime throughout certain pockets of Surrey. So like that's honestly one of the main reasons why, is because they're starting to feel unsafe just based off the fact that you're seeing all these kind of sketchy people walking around, or all these kind of things going on that it's not the norm, and it's not really necessarily something most people are okay with being around a lot of times. So that is why, again, we have a terrible rep over here, and rightfully so. At those times and in those scenarios and in those pockets of Surrey, it is unsafe at certain times, right? So you do always need to be walking on eggshells a little bit, or just be cognitive of like everything that's going on in the area, and just be like cognitive of your surrounding area in general, right? So that most likely till this day nothing bad's happened to me yet, but it's like you do never know, right? Even I've had bad scenarios where I'll just be out and about, you do run into people that want to just start picking a fight with you, or just for whatever reason, right? They're just having a bad day. But honestly, that's the world in general. But Surrey just has a bad rep, just again due to the Indo-Canadian gangs that are in the area, us always being on the news. And in Canada, besides Vancouver, like Surrey is one of the main metropolises outside of Vancouver that most people know, right? Even whether you're from Canada, United Kingdom, whatever, most people know about Surrey, British Columbia. So those are just the main issues that people have with living out here, guys. Okay, but the good thing is this, is when looking even deeper into the stats, let's just use the car theft as an example. So when looking from year to date, from Q1 last year to Q1 this year, last year there was about 886 auto thefts, right? So like carjackings. This year that number's sitting at 819. So what we've already seen within that 1 year gap is there's already an 8% decrease in carjackings. Now, obviously take into consideration that this is during COVID and stuff like that, where most people had to there were stay-at-home orders. So when taking that into account, obviously you're going to be it would obviously have been a little bit higher, but even still looking at that number, instead of that 8% increase, you're probably looking at, let's say, like a 5 to 4% decrease from year to date. So again, that is a good thing, right? Because instead of having as high of carjackings as they had last year, we're having a lot less this year. Okay, but then that doesn't also come without its cons. So we're looking at some of the bad things about, again, why most people say Surrey is unsafe. Is now let's just take a look at the thefts in general, right? So let's look at the robberies. One of the main reasons why most people are going to say Surrey is unsafe is just looking at a number like this. So the robberies this year increased from 161 last year to 237 this year. So that's actually a 47% increase in the robberies that we've seen. So that is one of the main things we've been noticing, is even if you look at the news and you see the things kind of going on in the area, is even despite COVID and stay-at-home orders and all this kind of craziness going on in the world, the theft rate here and robberies and like house robberies and thefts and stuff like that have increased by a lot, guys. So that's why there's a 47% increase. So obviously you would probably think it's the other way around when we've been told that we can't go out as much as obviously how we usually are used to living. This year we haven't been able to go out as much, but it's like that number's increased by 47%. So that just lets you know in itself that these are one of the main reasons why most people say Surrey is unsafe, right? Is numbers like that is a pretty high rate in regards to, again, per capita, right? There's not as many people living here as there are in Vancouver. So having 237 robberies just up until now, like we're only in Q1. But sorry, we're only in Q1 right now. So even if we wait till January, let's just say, around then you're probably going to end up seeing even a lot more, right? That number could be at 350, right? 400. But on the one side, how the robberies increased, the one thing we did see is that the assaults decreased. So when looking at how many assaults there were in the area last year, there was about 2,000. This year, that number sits at about 1,880. So that's about an 8% decrease in regards to how many assaults you were seeing. But again, that's mostly taking into consideration that most of the lounges were closed, the pubs were closed, the nightclubs and stuff are closed. And again, that's one of the main things you do see in Surrey is when people are intoxicated or they're around liquor and they're around their friends and they're partying and having fun for whatever reason it is, you do tend to see, again, you see that everywhere in general, but here in Surrey, it's just brought out, it's more of a story, right? And you're going to see it blown more out of proportion. And you will tend to see people trying to get into altercations with you or trying to start a fight with you and stuff like that. And again, that is one of the major reasons why most people have an issue with coming out here or just having fun out here, just partying out here, is they'll start to complain that, hey, like when we're out in Surrey and we're having fun or we're partying in the evenings and stuff, there's always people that are trying to start fights with us. That's one of the things that they just really, really don't like, right? But again, the good thing is there's an 8% decrease, but again, you have to take that with a grain of salt because the majority of the year, again, the nightclubs and all that stuff where most of those assaults are occurring, we're closed. So technically it's like the numbers probably, if COVID didn't happen, you're looking at either like a 1% increase in assaults or it's just staying steady at what it is. Okay. Now lastly, let's move on to the violent crimes in the area, guys. So when looking at the violent crimes in the area, last year that number was sitting at about 4,100 and this year that number is sitting at about 3,900, guys. So that's a 4% decrease in the violent crime in the area. But again, the one thing we have to take into consideration is during this year, majority of the year, we've been on lockdown orders. A lot of stores, shops, and a lot of the nightlife and stuff has been closed. And just if we're taking that into account, you're probably looking at, instead of a 4% decrease, you're looking at that number just breaking even or an increase by like a percentage or 2% because of, obviously we would have been able to be out and about more than what we were allowed to for a majority of the year, just due to everything that's kind of going on, right? So hopefully that does give you guys an idea of why, Surrey is safe and why it's not safe, right? And honestly, like after just giving you guys this information too, you guys can make an informed decision yourself, but just based off the numbers and stuff, you guys can see it's not the most unsafest place, but unfortunately it isn't a really safe place to live. It is a great place to raise a family and it has a big Indo-Canadian community and tons of different other cultures and stuff that live in the area. But the main issue is just the fact that you do tend to see a lot of crime and a lot of stuff like that going on here. And it's one of the main reasons why a lot of people, when they think of Surrey, British Columbia, the first thing they think of immediately is, it's not a safe place, gang violence, and just stuff like that, right? Like tons of negative connotations pointing towards Surrey as opposed to pointing out any of the positives, right? But obviously after seeing this video, you guys realize there is a reason for why people do bring up Surrey as being an unsafe place, right? And hopefully this does give you guys an idea of why it's not the most safest place to live when moving out to the lower mainland, to Vancouver or any of the surrounding suburbs, but it's also not the worst place to live too. So don't kind of get that misconstrued. It still is a nice place to live. I've still lived here for over 20 years and I love it, right? I don't really have any major complaints other than the ones that I kind of just pointed out to you guys in the video. But hopefully that does give you guys an idea of whether Surrey BC is a safe place to live or not. And another thing, guys, if you guys can, again, make sure you guys hit that notification button, that subscribe button to subscribe to our videos every week. This way you guys are the first people to see them. And then another thing, if you live in Surrey, drop a comment down below and let me know what's one of the main things that you don't like about living here, right? What's the main reasons that you think Surrey is not a safe place to live? And if you're thinking about moving here, drop a comment in the comment section below and let me know so far what you feel are one of the main reasons why you might choose not to move out to Surrey, or what are the main reasons or main things that you see as being a safety issue for moving out to Surrey. So again, guys, just drop that in the comment section below. I'd love to hear some of your guys' ideas, and then I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.